Hi, welcome to my video on the classification of equations. Classification of equations. The number of variables in an equation decides how we classify the equations. If we have one variable, we have a single. So x is the single variable in this one. Y is the single variable in this equation. And L is the single variable in this equation. Double variables is 2. Double meaning 2, so it's an xy. Notice you got a y and an x. Notice here you got a y and two x's, but there's only two variables, so that's an x twice and a y. An equation with a triple variable is a, l, and w, 3. A and b and h, 3. P, L, and W. Notice these are familiar equations. Parameters, length times the length and the width. Here we have a triangle, base times height. So notice we have singles, doubles, and triples depending on the number of variables. In practice, which ones are single, double, and triple variable equations? So notice this one. You got a 1y and an x. So that's a double. I'm going to say D for double, or 2. Number 2, we have a C and a D, so that's a 2. Pi is a constant. Pi is a number, 3.14 ... So that's not a variable. Number 3, we have an x and an x. That's only a single, or one variable, because only one x. Just x, there's only one variable of x. Number 4, we have an a, a b, and an h. That's 3 variables. So that's a triple, 3. We have p equals 2a plus b. That's a triple because we got a p, an a, and a b. Number 6, we have an x and an x. So that's a single, one variable. So again, equations are single variable, double variables, and triple variables. This unit is solving an equation with a single variable. That is, all x's, or all y's, or all a's. There's no x's and y's. There's no a's and b's and c's. There's only a single variable equation. That's important as we go on in the math. Notice here we have just x. In this one we have just an x. In this one we have just an x. There's an x twice, but there's just a single variable of x. This equation has a y and a y, a single variable of y. And this one has a single variable of a. So we're solving equations with a single variable. Single variable. Okay, let's classify equations. As with polynomials, equations can be classified by its largest of any term. When it's the largest of any one term when classified. What we're talking about there is the degree of an equation is the largest degree of any one term. So it's classified as the largest of any one term, the largest number of terms. Let's learn this first. The degree of an equation, 1 is linear, 2 is quadratic, 3 is cubic, 4 is quartic, 5 is quintic. Now we'll talk about right now in this unit, we're talking about a linear at degree 1. Quadratic will be done in grade probably 10 or 11. Cubics is done in grade probably again late 11, could be grade 12, but these will come in later, but I have to mention them now. So again, if you got first degree is linear, second degree is quadratic, third degree is cubic, as in you cube, like you cube 2 cubed is 8, so that's a cubic. If you square, quadratic is a square like x squared. A linear is just an x. And a quartic is 4, quintic is 5. Let's classify according to degree. The largest degree here is 1, so that's a linear. Linear is degree 1. We have a 1 and a 1, so the largest degree is 1, so that's a linear. But notice, this is a linear, this one is a linear, but it has 2 variables. This is a linear at degree 1, but it only has 1 variable. Right here we have the highest degree here is there's a 1, a 2, and a 1. The highest degree of any one term here is a 2. So the degree of this equation is 2. So that's a quadratic. But it's a quadratic which has two variables. This is a quadratic again. That's a 2 and a 2. So the highest is a 2. So when you have a degree quadratic, and it's two variables. And this one is a 1 and a 1. So this is a single xy. That's a single term. So the degree of that term is 1 plus 1, 2. And that's a quadratic. But it's a quadratic with two variables. And this one has, that's degree 1, that's degree 3, that's degree 2. The highest here is a 3, so that's a cubic. And again, the cubic, the quadratic, the quintic, the quartics, they'll be all done later on. But I just want to distinguish which is which here, because it's no good to be talking about we have linear equations when you don't know really the difference between a linear and a quadratic and a cubic. But hopefully this will help. Right here, that's a 1, and that's a 1 and a 1. The degree of right here is 2, so that's a quadratic. We have a p to the 1, l to the 1, w to the 1, and that's the degree. Highest degree is 1, so that's a linear. But again, it's a linear with three variables. And right here, we got a y is 1, x is 4, so the highest degree is 4, so that's a quartic. And here it's a 1, 5, and a 2. 5 is the highest degree, so that's a quintic, Q-U-I-N-T-I-C. And it's two different variables. And right here we got a 1, that's a 1, a 1, and a 1. So that's a term, so that's degree 3, because 1 plus 1 plus 1. So this is a cubic. If you think of a cubic, being 3, volume, what is volume? Volume is length times width times height. Volume is 3 dimensions, so volume is a cubic. Area is length times width, and length times width is area, and area is 2 dimensions, like feet, centimeters squared. Volume is s cubed, v, that's a 1 and that's a 3. The highest degree is 3, so that's a cubic. And again, think about it. That's the volume of a cube with the edge. Anyway, we have, if you learn, linear is 1, quadratic is 2, cubic is 3, quartic is 4, quintic is 5. But this chapter will be on linear, one variable, not a linear in two variables. That'll come later in another unit. Okay, let's continue. Practice. Practice means pause your video and see if you get the answers right, and then play it back. Classify each as linear, quadratic, cubic, quartic, or quintic. Degree 4 is the highest, so the type is quartic. Remember, it's the largest degree of any one term. That's a 1 and that's a 2, so it's degree 2, so that's a quadratic. And as I said, area is base times height, so that's 2 dimensions. We have a 1 and a 1, so that's degree 1, so that's a linear. And it's a linear of one variable. This is a 1, a 3, 2, 1. That's a cubic, degree 3. And that's a 1, and that's 2, and 1 makes 3. That's a cubic, because the degree is 3. It's only 2 terms, but that's a square, and that's a 1, so that's a cube altogether. A 1, and a 1, so that's a linear, degree 1, but it's a linear with 3 variables. As you can see, 2 here anyway on this side. And we have y x to the 5, and a 5 is a quintic, degree 5. And right here, if you simplify this, you got a 9y minus 1, and you got a 3y plus 2y plus 1. So altogether, we only have a 1 degree, and so the 1 degree is a linear, and is a linear with one variable. An equation has to be simplified. We have to simplify the equation to see if it's going to be quadratic or linear or cubic or quartic or quintic. So what happens when you look at this one, that's a 1. When you look at that x, it's a 1. When you look at this x, you get a 1. You say, oh, that's a linear. No, you have to multiply it out. FOIL, first, outside, inside, last. So that gives you x squared plus 3x plus 2. So first, outside, inside, last. Now, when you look at it when it's simplified, we have what? The degree is 2. So that's a quadratic. So it has to be simplified. Multiply these two, you get x. 2 plus 1 is 3. That's x cubed plus 3x squared. So I multiply, I get a cube. So that's a cubic because degree, the largest degree is 3. And this one, I have a 3x squared plus 12x equals negative 20. That's simplified in terms of the degrees. So that's a 2 and that's a 1 and that's a 0. So this, if you want to bring it all to the one side and make it equal to 0, well, that's okay too, but that's a quadratic, degree 2. The degree is 2, it's a quadratic. Degree is 1, it's a linear. Degree is 3, is cubic. And let's multiply this. So we get a 2x to the 4 first, because we've got 3 multiplications. We multiply these two first to get x to the 4th. Then we have to multiply that by this binomial. So that's 2x to the 5 plus 2x to the 4. The largest degree is 5, so this is a quintic. Quintic, Q-U-I-N-T-I-C. And that brings us to classifying equations. Again, remind you, this unit, it's on a linear equation, degree 1, in a 1 variable. Mostly x's all the time, but it don't have to be. And if you like my video, click the like button. And if you're not a subscriber, click the subscribe button. And click the notification bell when you are a subscriber. And if you want to write a comment on my video, go ahead. And if you want to visit my math website, mathfullyexplained.com, there you'll have information in 3 different sections about me, my degrees and teach experience. The section on videos talks about the strategies you're going to use to help you learn the math on my channel. And the section on content has the topics and the number of videos on each topic. The black font has the videos that are online right now on my YouTube channel. And the red font is the ones that will be developed in the near future. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.